In the late 1980s, millions of people recognized her face, but today, almost no one remembers her name. She appeared in more than 100 productions during the most explosive expansion of the home video era, working alongside some of the most recognizable performers of her generation, and then, almost quietly, disappeared from the historical record. Her name was Nina DePonca. And this is the story of how one of the defining faces of the golden video age became one of its most overlooked. The late 1980s home video boom transformed entertainment faster than almost any shift before it. VHS technology changed how audiences watched films, how producers distributed them, and how performers became recognizable far beyond traditional theaters. It created a new kind of celebrity, one built not through Hollywood premieres, but through video store shelves across North America. Nina DePonca was one of those faces. During her peak years, she appeared in over 100 productions, a body of work that rivaled the output of many studio contract performers from classical Hollywood's earlier eras. She worked alongside some of the most recognized names of her generation: Ron Jeremy, Nina Hartley, Peter North, Amber Lynn. She wasn't simply present during that transformation, she was part of what made it possible. And yet today, like many performers from the golden video age, her story has almost disappeared from public memory. Nina DePonca was born on November 2, 1966 in Ponce, Puerto Rico, a historic coastal city known for its music, architecture, and strong cultural identity. At the time, there was nothing to suggest she would one day become one of the most widely recognized performers of the VHS era. She was raised primarily in Youngstown, Ohio, a Midwestern steel town. By the 1970s, was already feeling the effects of industrial decline. It was not a place associated with cinema, celebrity, or spectacle. It was a place defined by discipline, resilience, and community. Those qualities would follow her west. Before arriving in Los Angeles, Nina worked as a nightclub dancer in Cleveland and later modeled for several nationally distributed men's magazines. It was professional, demanding work, the kind that required confidence, stage presence, and the ability to connect with an audience long before stepping onto a film set. Without realizing it, she was already preparing for the career that would follow. By the mid-1980s, Los Angeles had become the center of two parallel entertainment industries. One produced blockbuster films that dominated theaters around the world. The other operated quietly in converted warehouses and small studios across the San Fernando Valley, but reached millions of viewers through the rapidly expanding home video market. Nina DePonca arrived at precisely the moment those two worlds were diverging. Her transition into film came quickly. Modeling had already given her visibility. Performance work had given her confidence. And the expanding VHS marketplace created unprecedented demand for performers who could carry titles by name alone. Timing mattered, and Nina DePonca's timing was nearly perfect. She entered the industry just as home video transformed a niche theatrical subculture into a nationwide distribution network reaching living rooms across the United States. Very few performers arrived at a more decisive moment. Between the mid-1980s and the early 1990s, Nina DePonca built a filmography that exceeded 100 titles. That wasn't unusual output. It was evidence of trust. By the late 1980s, her name alone could support the marketing of a release in video store circulation, something achieved by only a small number of performers during the peak VHS years. Her work ranged across narrative productions, parody-style features, and ensemble collaborations that defined the tone of the golden video era. Among her notable appearances were Heat of the Night in 1988, Bimbo Cheerleaders from Outer Space the same year, and Dance Fire in 1989 productions that demonstrated both versatility and consistency during a period when audience recognition determined career longevity. She also appeared in Debbie Class of '89 and Innocence Lost, titles released at what many historians now consider the closing years of the era's creative peak. Her collaborators included Ron Jeremy, Nina Hartley, Peter North, and Amber Lynn, performers whose visibility extended beyond their industry into broader popular culture by the early 90s. These were not incidental partnerships. They reflected her position at the center of a rapidly expanding entertainment landscape. Like many performers of her generation, Nina DePonca stepped away from the industry just as it began changing permanently. The early 1990s brought new production economics, evolving health protocols, and shifting audience expectations. The era that had created many of its most recognizable figures was already beginning to disappear, and with it, many of their stories. Years later, she briefly returned in the early 2000s, appearing in productions shaped by a very different industry environment, one that reflected new formats, new audiences, and a new technological landscape. But something important had changed. What remains missing today is Nina DePonca's own account of those years, her perspective on what the industry offered, what it required, and what it meant to be part of one of its most visible generations. That absence is not unusual. Many of the performers who defined the golden video age never had the opportunity to record their experiences in their own words. And that silence has shaped how the era is remembered. Nina DePonca's career represents more than a single performer's filmography. She belonged to a generation that helped define the visual identity, commercial structure, and audience reach of the home video revolution during its most explosive period of growth. That transformation did not happen because of distributors or executives. It happened because performers created work audiences wanted to return to. And Nina DePonca was one of those performers. As a Puerto Rican woman raised in the American Midwest, her presence on screen also represented a form of visibility rarely acknowledged at the time, but meaningful to audiences who recognized themselves in it. She built a career in an industry that did not always preserve its own history, and the record she left behind still matters. Nina DePonca worked during one of the most influential transitions in modern entertainment history. More than 100 productions, collaborations with some of the defining names of her era. A career that began in Cleveland nightclubs and unfolded across the most widely distributed home video releases of the late 1980s. But history only survives when audiences choose to remember it. And if you remember Nina DePonca or discovered her work during the VHS era, share that memory in the comments below. These stories continue because viewers keep them alive. If you'd like to see more documentaries restoring the history of Golden Age performers, subscribe to Retro Cinema, History, Icon Biographies. And tell us which forgotten icon we should explore next. Because there are still many stories waiting to be rediscovered.
Miss Anderson?
Mr. Farley?
Yeah, is this my office?
Yes, sir. May I say welcome to Megamar Studios.
Thanks. But you know, I don't know if I'm ready for this yet.
Oh, come on, sir. You're being modest. Any man who can make a movie like Runaway Zombies from Venus can do anything.
Can I tell you a little secret, Miss Anderson?
Just call me Tish. Everyone else does around here.
All right, Tish. I borrowed all the money I could to make Runaway Zombies on a shoestring. It was only luck that it was so popular.
Luck in a disappearance in the Venus expedition.
Yeah, that helped too. So, what do I do now?
Well, you make a sequel.
A sequel?
Yes, Runaway Zombies from Venus Part 2.